Guys, Be'ezrat Hashem, we're going to start. Hopefully, we're going to learn some. I don't think I ever spoke about it that much. At least it's the first cycle that we're going to talk about it. You know, this week's Parsha Kitisa, it's one of the episodes that you're very familiar with, all of us. 40 days, after the Jews receive they hear the 10 Commandments, so Moshe Rabbeinu goes on Har Sinai, Mount Sinai, to actually wait there to get the 2 tablets. So he goes up on the 7th day of Sivan. That's the day after we heard the 10 Commandments. 40 days ends in the 17th of Tammuz. And then what happens is the Jews make a mistake in the calculation because Moshe says, I'm going to go up to the mountain for 40 days. At the end of 40 days, I'm going to come down. So the Jews counted the first day as the first day, 7th of Sivan. So you have 24 days in month of Sivan, 16 days in month of Tammuz. That's the next month. Don't worry about the months if you're not familiar with it. But then the Jews, and then they see that Moshe didn't come down. He's not there. So they made a mistake in the counting. The first day was not counted. And the reason is because Moshe Rabbeinu meant 24 hours, the night and the day. So because the first day didn't have the night with it, it's not counted at all. So the Jews are waiting. They see Moshe is not showing up. They get nervous. Now here, this is not in the Torah, but the Medrash explains that actually God gave permission to the Satan, to the angel that makes lots of trouble, that he should confuse the Jews. He showed them like this very, very gloomy darkness, like the world is ending. And then he actually shows them like a bed or a coffin that Moshe is being carried up into heaven. So they thought Moshe is dead. That's what they thought. They thought Moshe passed away. They get nervous. They come to Aaron and tell him, hey, make a new leader for us. Obviously, again, I'm saying it in very, very short because I want to get to the point. There were a lot of non-Jews with the Jewish people too that actually converted to Judaism. A lot of the Egyptians, when they saw the success of the Jews, they didn't want to stay in Egypt anymore. So they came out and Moshe converted them. In his mind, it's a great thing you convert other people to believe in God, especially in those days that only believed in idols. The only nation that believed in God were the Jews. So when they see this happens and Moshe is not there, so they actually ask for another idol to be made. Most of the Jews wanted a new leader. What happens is, again, these are only in the Medrash. It's not in the Torah. Miriam's son, her name was Hur. Miriam is Moshe Rabbeinu's sister. So he protests. They kill him on the spot. So you can't have another leader. Moshe is going to come back. He's going to come back. Especially that, the Erev Rav, the multitude that converted, they wanted to have a new leader, not as a leader, but as an idol. So they kill him. So then Aaron sees what happened. He says, you see, they killed him. According to the Medrash, the 70 elders that were part of the Supreme Court of Moshe, they were also murdered when they protested. So here Aaron says, you know what? You can't fight with these guys. These guys are like, too hot-headed. So he decided, to be easy with them. So he says, okay, what I want you to do, he says, what I want you to do is that you guys should go and bring all the jewelry, the earrings of your wives. Now, why would Moshe do that? And why did Aaron do that? Poor ladies. Will you ever go to your wife and say, give me your jewelry back? He wouldn't do that. So Aaron did it because he was hoping that the women will resist until, they're convinced to give their earrings. And by that time, it's going to be another day, and Moshe for sure is going to come back the next day. So the ladies didn't give it. But Aaron made a mistake. The men took off their own earrings. Those days, the men wore earrings. Could you believe that? So now they're bringing the old custom back. When our youth, the boys, put on earrings. So in terms of Moshe, they put on the earrings. And then Aaron says, you know what? Okay, you brought the gold. So there's actually 2 versions what happened. Either he threw the gold into fire, and those Egyptians that were with them, through magic, they made it into a golden calf. And it was actually a living one. Could you imagine a golden calf walking around? According to other opinions, actually Aaron himself forged it. He made it. And he did it on purpose because he was hoping it's going to take an extra day. Longer time. By the time they're going to make it ready, so, Moshe is going to come back. But Moshe didn't come back early the next day. They got up early and they brought sacrifices to the golden calf. So this is basically the story that we have in this week's parsha, right? Now what happens is Moshe is on top of the mountain. God gives him the bad news. So Moshe has the 2 tablets. That's what we're going to discuss. He comes down from the mountain and he sees the Jews not only They brought sacrifices to the golden calf, but they're rejoicing. It says they were dancing, you know what I'm saying? If you do a sin, okay, one thing, but you don't rejoice about it. So that really made him mad. That's what it seems simply, and he breaks the tablets. That happened on the 17th day of Tammuz. That's one of the reasons why we fast on that day. It's 3 weeks before Tisha B'Av, and big fast. So one of the reasons why we fast, because on that day, Moshe broke the tablets, right? Guys, do you think it was a positive thing that he broke it or a negative thing that he broke it? Simply learning. Simply was a negative thing, right? How dare you break something that God gave you? God actually cut the stones and actually wrote the 10 commandments on it. So again, looking at it that it's a negative thing, we're going to get to a little trouble. In the end of the Torah actually talks about the greatness of Moshe. That's what we're going to focus on. Hopefully, it's going to be something that makes a lot of sense to everyone. When the Torah talks about the death of Moshe, so it talks about his greatness. Let's see how the Torah talks about the greatness of Moshe. So we're holding on the last 3-4 verses of the Torah. It says, "Velokam navi od beIsrael ke Moshe." There will never be another prophet amongst the Jews like Moshe Rabbeinu. Why? What was his greatness? So the Torah says, "Ashido Hashem panim el panim." God knew him face to face. And Rashi explains, usually when other prophets spoke to God, they would tremble. It's a very scary thing. But Moshe actually spoke to God face to face, meaning like a friend. He never got nervous. That's how close he was with God. Then the Torah says, all the miracles that he did, he was the greatest prophet because of all the miracles that he made in Egypt. No other prophet made miracles like him. That was another greatness. Then he says, also his strong hand, meaning that he took the tablets in his hands. I got all those, awesome things that he did, for the Jews in the desert. The end of the Torah says what Moshe did le'eine kol Israel, in front of the eyes of the Jews. The Torah doesn't say what it was. What was the great thing that Moshe did in front of the eyes of the Jews? So let's look at Rashi. Rashi writes down and he says, what was the great thing that he did? Shenesau libo, his heart carried him, lishbor haluchot le'neim, to break the tablets in front of the eyes of the Jews. How does Rashi know le'einechem, in front of their eyes, means the breaking of the tablets? Because many times when the Torah uses the same word in 2 different episodes, so we compare them. When he breaks the tablets, it says, Moshe said before, Va'ashabram, I broke them le'einechem, in front of your eyes. Correct? So when it says here, Moshe did something in front of the eyes of the Jews, means the breaking of the tablets. So what is the last thing that the Torah talks about? That Moshe went and he broke the tablets. So here the commentators have a problem. The first one that asks this question, so his name is Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrach. He was the big rabbi that lived around 400 years ago or something. So he asks the question, usually when a person dies, right? You only talk about his positive things. You never talk about their negative. Because actually the words that you say about them will defend them when they go to judgment. That's why halacha says you can't say lies. You can't make them bigger than what they are. Because first of all, it brings accusation against the person and the guy that is eulogizing him. Because you're saying things that he doesn't have. So that brings you an accusation against him. And if I say lies about him, I'm talking about him, I say good things, but they're not true, brings accusation on me. But again, whatever truthful good things he has, you have to talk about him. Our words will defend him when he's passing away. So Moshe is passing away. The Torah says every great thing about him, the greatest prophet, spoke to God face to face, made miracles in the desert, made miracles in Egypt. Why would the Torah write something negative about Moshe? That he broke the tablets in front of the eyes of the Jewish people. And that's a very big tragedy, seemingly. Because again, the tablets wasn't just regular tablets. God cut them from the mountain where it was cut from. And God actually engraved in them the 10 commandments. It's the dearest thing to God. And the Torah says that he broke it. That's what it says. How come the Torah says a negative thing, the last word when Moshe Rabbeinu is passing away? So because of this question, Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrachi gives an answer that Rashi adds another thing at the end of his statement, and he brings it from a different medrash. It says God agreed to Moshe that he broke the tablets. Because when he breaks it, God says, go make the second tablets, because by the first tablets, Asher Shibarta. It says the word Asher, that you broke. Now, Asher also means Ashrei, lucky you are. That means you did a good thing for breaking it. So Rabbi Yoel Mizrahi says that's where Rashi adds these things. That's what he was bothered with. How could the Torah end with something bad? So even though something bad, but at least you find a good point that God agreed to Moshe. Isn't that a great thing? He did something on his own, and God agreed with him. That's the answer that he wants to give. The problem with that is that, first of all, the Torah doesn't say here that God agreed with him. No, it doesn't say it clearly. It just says that he broke it in front of their eyes. Secondly, Moshe did many things that God agreed with him. When he prayed for the Jews, God agreed with him. And there's nothing negative about it. He actually prayed for the saving. So if the Torah wants to bring a story that Moshe did something great, that God agreed with him, why the breaking of the tablets? Doing other stuff that he prayed and God agreed to his prayers. So because of this, we're going to actually go through a very deep thing, people. It's going to be very, very deep. I'm going to ask you please to pay attention. We're going to learn about the breaking of the tablets. Really, why did Moshe Rabbeinu break the tablets? So we find two medrashim. Rashi brings them both, and we're going to analyze which one is the more important one. So on the place when he breaks the tablets, Rashi says that Moshe had a reasoning. It says regarding the Pesach sacrifice, right? It says somebody who worships idols cannot bring the sacrifice of Passover. So Moshe Rabbeinu made a rule. If somebody who worships idols can't do one mitzvah, right? He can't even make a Korban Pesach, right? So that individual. So now over here, all the Jews are worshiping idols. So they're going to get the tablets? For sure, they don't deserve the tablet. So he broke it. You get what he said? He said, if somebody, it says, call whatever, whoever, call Ben Nechar, whoever worships idols can't bring the sacrifice of Pesach, right? Here, all the Jews are worshiping idols. And they're going to get the tablets? They don't deserve them, so he broke it. That's one reason that Rashi brings. Then Rashi brings the second reason later on. When it comes to the second tablets, God didn't cut the stone. He told Moshe, you cut the two tablets. I'm going to write the 10 commandments on it. Why the difference? Why the second time Moshe had to cut the tablets? So Rashi brings a parable. There was one time a prince. This prince fell in love with a certain girl and gave her the ring. He became his wife. They're going to make a wedding later on. The problem was the king had to go away. This prince had to go away. And then the maids that were serving this future queen, they did adultery. And her name came out to be very bad. So the prince gets very angry and he says, I'm going to kill this girl. I gave her a ring and she goes and, does adultery with others. So the faithful servant, she had a very faithful servant. She went and he ripped up the ketubah, the marriage contract. And he told the prince, she's not your wife. Where's the marriage contract? You can't go kill her. She never got married to you. Anyways, after a few weeks or something, they found out that this poor princess didn't do anything wrong. It was really the maids. So the prince is not angry anymore. So he tells the faithful servant, you know what? I'm going to marry my wife. I'm going to write a new ketubah. So he says, okay, let's do it. So he says, no. I'm not going to pay for the ketubah. You rip it up, you're going to bring me the paper, I'm going to write on it the words of the ketubah. That's what Rashi says. So Rashi also explains, here the husband is God. The Jewish people are God's, wife. So then, true, they were involved with the golden calf, but the Jews really didn't serve it. They just didn't protest. Most of the people that sinned were those Egyptians that converted. But God was very angry. So Moshe takes the two tablets, that was our marriage contract, and he breaks it. And he tells God, I never gave it to them. You gave me these 10 commandments, and it says, I'm your only God, there is no other God. But I never gave it to the Jews, I broke it. So they're not married to you, you have no right to kill them. That's what Moshe did. So then, when God realizes, he knew it, but the Jews repented and they really didn't serve the idols, they just didn't protest. So God says, okay, you know what, I'm going to give the new tablets again, which is a new marriage contract. And he tells Moshe, you broke the first ones, you have to go make the new one. I'm not going to make them. That's why Moshe had to make the second one. He had to actually cut the stones. But God writes the words of the marriage contract. So I'm going to ask you, which one is the main reason to you? Why he broke the tablets? Is it because the Jews didn't deserve it? He said they're worshiping idols, they don't deserve the tablets? Or was it that he broke it to save the Jews? Which one do you think is the main reason?
Let's say it was to save the Jews.
You're saying that it's to save the Jews. So actually it makes sense. Why? Because if you say the Jews don't deserve it, right? In other words, it's not respectful for the tablets to be given to a bunch of idol worshippers. So why did you break it? Give it back to God. You're telling me it's not respectful to give the tablets to the Jews. Breaking it is even more disrespectful. So it doesn't make sense for the honor of the tablets you break them. You must say that the main reason is why did he break them? To tell God that the Jews are not married to you. They never, you never gave them the contract. So they're not really your whatever servants or your future spouse. So that's why Moshe actually broke the tablets. Is that clear? So now, one thing that we see here is regarding Moshe Rabbeinu, nobody really knows the value of the two tablets as much as Moshe Rabbeinu knows them, because he was the holiest person. Not only that, he actually fasted on the mountain for 40 days. He didn't eat anything. Stood there to receive the two tablets. He actually received the entire Torah face to face from God. So if anybody knows the value of the Torah, is none other than Moshe Rabbeinu himself. Correct? But nevertheless, when he was in a dilemma, if I bring the tablets, give it to the Jews, they're going to deserve to die, because there's a contract that they're married to God. But if I break it or destroy it, I'm being disrespectful to the Torah, but I'm saving the Jews. He didn't know it was a big dilemma. Which one is more important? Are the Jews more important, or the two tablets are more important? So he decided to break the tablets, and he showed that the Jews are more important. To understand this a little bit better, there's actually one of the books, it's called Tanat Ve'Eliyahu. So that was written by one of the Amoraim, one of the rabbis of the Gemara. His name was Rab Anan. So he says that Eliyahu of Elijah the prophet used to come to him and teach him these things, so he wrote it down. So one of the statements, it says that Eliyahu asked him, who do you think is more important? There are two things that are very dear to God. One is the Torah, and one is the Jewish people. Which one is more dear to God? His language is Kadma. Which one is higher? Which one is dear to God? So Rab Anan didn't know. So Eliyahu told him the whole world says that the Torah is more important. But I say, Eliyahu says it, I say that the Jews are more important. And he brings a very, very beautiful example. There was once a king that he had many, many servants. There was one of these old servants, almost retired. He loved him the most. So that's why you have so many other servants, younger ones, more capable ones. Why do you love this old guy? So it says, you know why? Because he's the instructor of my son. He's my son's teacher. If not for him, where would my son be today? So Eliyahu Hanavi says there are two things that are very dear to God. One are the Jewish people, one is the Torah. Now, why is the Torah so dear to God? Because if not for the Torah, where would my children, the Jewish people, be? That's why God loves the Torah. So it comes out by the king. Why does he love that old instructor? Because of his child. That means his child is more dear to him. Correct? And because he loves his child so much, and this instructor teaches the son, so he loves him the most. But he loves the instructor because of his child. Same thing here. Why does God love the Torah so much? Because really the Jews are important to God. If not for the Torah, where would the Jews be? In other words, there's so much good in the Jewish people, but everything is dormant, sleeping. The Torah actually brings the goodness out. So understand, that's the question that we have. Do we say a Jew is really worthless unless he keeps the Torah? So then when he's connected to God, he has something worth, or otherwise he's completely worthless. That's what the whole world thinks, or thought, at least. Eliyahu Hanavi comes and says, no, the opposite. The Jew is the most dear one. And there is so much good in every human being. Every Jew has tremendous amount of good things, but they're dormant. They're sleeping. When we study the Torah brings the good things out. And that's what Eliyahu said, that God loves the Torah because if not for the Torah, where would the Jewish people be? So really the Jews are more dear. Now we understand with this why Moshe Rabbeinu broke the tablets. He really broke it to save the Jews that were worshiping idols, or at least they didn't protest, right? So now we understand why the Torah talks about this at the end of the Torah, that Moshe broke the tablets, because actually Torah is going in order about the greatness of Moshe from the lowest level to the highest level. The first great thing about Moshe is that he spoke to God face to face. He made miracles in Egypt and miracles in desert, But none of these things are that important. What's the greatest value of Moshe Rabbeinu? That he broke the two tablets that were so dear to him, because his connection to the Jews was more important than his connection to the Torah. So he was willing to break it. So this is the greatest thing about Moshe Rabbeinu. That's what is written at the end. That's, the way he actually wanted this from the wisdom of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. That's the way he explains it. But actually, the truth is, this is not, the Rebbe made it a lot bigger. But already one of the Sephardic Kabbalists, he has a book on Rashi. The name of his book is Maskil Le David. His name was David, I think, Pedro, I don't remember exactly. Not Pedro. Pedro comes from Mexico. He wasn't Pedro. There was one time the guy's name is Pedron. So I said, what's your new name? My new name is Pedro. There was a guy, Dardashti, he changed his name to Greenfield. Because dashed is like a field. So Dardashti is Greenfield. Yahubi, Jacobson, Esagian, Isaacson. It happened. So anyways, going back, I don't know how I got in there. So Moshe Rabbeinu actually broke the tablets to save them. This is the great, so Maskele David writes it down. That's what he said. He says Moshe Rabbeinu broke the tablets to save the Jews. He brings it down. That's why this is like a good thing about Moshe. So that makes it a lot bigger. But the lesson that we do learn here, people, again, this is not conventional. Many times people think if a Jew is not religious, God forbid, he has no really any value. So from this thing, at least the way this outlook we got, from Tana Develio, that is the total opposite. A Jew is the dearest thing to God. And the reason why the Torah is so valuable, because through the Torah, the Jews actually reach their potential. So you have to know our values, number one. You have to know the value of every Jewish person that we know. God forbid not to judge him that is really worthless. So this is the first part that Be'ezrat Hashem we learned tonight. There's actually a second part that brings the same concept too. You see this week's portion, anybody knows the Pitum Aktoret? You ever see when they pray, they count with their fingers, some religious Jews? Right? So these are the 11 things. There were 11 incenses or 11 types of plants that used to grind it in the Beit HaMikdash, and then they used to burn it twice a day. He brought a good smell. He used to burn it in one of the rooms in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And the Torah actually says there were 11 types of plants that used to pulverize it and then burn it, right? They had like 368 some weight of it, and actually every day they burned one of it, so 365 for a year, and then there was 3 extra ones that used it on Yom Kippur. We stayed every day in davening. So actually we count them, Hatzari, Vatziporen, Vachilben, these are different plants. One of them was a saffron that used to burn. One of them is called Chelbena. Chelbena had a very bad smell. So 10 of them had a good smell. One of them had a terrible smell. So the Gemara asked the question, why would God bring in his house a plant that really stinks so bad? I don't know what the smell was, but it smells very bad. So here the Gemara says, from this we learn, whenever Jews have a public fast, in order for their prayers to be considered to be a prayer, every type of a Jew has to be there. A tzaddik, a righteous one, Beinuni, the average Jew, even the Rasha, the wicked one. If not, the prayers are not accepted. It's not a good congregation. From where do you learn? You have to have the wicked Jews coming there too, because in the smelling things, the incenses or the plants that used to burn, one of them was chelbena, that smelled bad. This chelbena represents the wicked Jews. That's where they put it. So again, from here we see that there's actually a unity of the Jews. That's the greatest thing. Even the wicked ones have a part. Otherwise, the fast is not accepted. Actually, how do we say a minyan, guys? Another word for minyan in Hebrew? No. Tefillah, we said. When you pray with the community, tefillah, the word tzibur. Tzibur means community, communal. What does tzibur stand for? The tzaddik stands for the word tzaddik, the righteous one. Bet stands for Beinuni, means average. Then you have a vav and a resh. Vav and a resh means ver rasha, and the wicked one. So even in the word of minyan, tzibur, and we don't say tzaddik, Beinuni, rasha, you put a vav. Vav means and connects them. So the minyan is not only with tzaddikim, righteous people, not only with Beinunim, average Jews, but actually there has to be Vereshaim. They have to be connected to the wicked one too. Otherwise, the praise are not accepted. So we see here that actually every Jew has a value. We have also something very similar to that. When it comes to holiday of Sukkot, right? Everybody knows the Lulav network that we make a blessing with. So why did God choose these plants? It's a medrash. There's two explanations given. There's probably more. Why did God choose these 4 plants? So the medrash says the etrog, or the citrus fruit, has a good smell and a taste. So that represents the Jews that are scholarly and they do a lot of good deeds. All right. Now the lulav, which is from a palm tree, so the fruit of the palm, the date, has a good taste, but it has no smell. Correct? So that represents the Jews that know a lot of Torah, but they don't do so many good deeds. The myrtle or the hadassim, that has a good smell but no taste, that resembles the Jews, most of the Jews that do a lot of good deeds, but they don't have any knowledge. Then the willow, which is the arava, has no taste and no smell. So that represents the Jews that don't have any knowledge of Torah, and they don't do too many good things. But you have to have all 4 of them together to be able to make a blessing. Even if the arava, the one that has no smell, no taste, is missing, you cannot make a blessing on that. So the Gemara says that's why we take these 4, the Medrash says, we take these 4 plants, we put them together. When there is unity amongst the Jews, these people bring kapara, atonement they bring kapara for each other. So there's 2 ways to learn that. Some people say the righteous help for the wicked to be forgiven. So that basically means that the wicked ones are really not good, they're just getting forgiven because of the righteous. But others say no, the unity itself brings forgiveness even for the righteous. And to prove that actually, it says about the 11 things that used to burn in the temple. So there's one of the great rabbis, his name was Rabbeinu Nissim. He lived close to like 900 years ago. He says the chelbana that had a bad smell, when it was mixed with the 10 plants that had a good smell, so it made the good smell to smell even better. So you see, the one that resembles the wicked made the things that smell better even to smell much more. When we have actually, tzaddikim, beinunim, reshaim, all types of Jews together, so when the rasha, even the wicked, comes into the community, that brings an advantage to the righteous too. So these are, the few things that we learn from this week's portion, that actually how important is. Every Jew is very important. And we said again, to such an extent that Moshe was willing to sacrifice and break the 2 tablets in order to save a Jew that, was involved in idol worship. So actually shows us how much value we should have for every single Jewish person. I hope it made sense. I hope so. Any other stuff? Any questions? No questions? So we're going to go through one more thing actually about Purim, and then in 10 minutes we'll be over. We don't have to go anywhere. There's Kubida here tonight. If he's not good, we're not going to pay him. Just let me know. But please don't go out of your way to find faults in it. If it's good, it's good. And if it's not good, we order again, a good one. Actually, anybody who's Parshat Sinai used to play DJ in KIRN. KIRN, the Persian radio. So now he has, thank God, he has a truck. He takes a truck to downtown and he gives kosher food. So anyway, so if you ordered from him, Bezat Hashem will be good. Just one thing that I wanted to study with you guys. We didn't have a chance to study it on Purim. The Gemara actually discusses what did the Jews do so bad that they deserve to get annihilated. We spoke about it last week, that at that time the worst decree happened, that there was one guy, Haman, wanted to kill all the Jews. The Jews had no place to run away to, because he was dominant all over the world, Achashverosh. Never happened that all Jews were living in the same country. Usually we live in different countries. So if there's a bad decree in one country, you could run away to a different country. We are all an example. We lived in Iran, at least our parents. I don't know about you guys. I was there for 12 years. And then, when the revolution started, we had no idea what they're going to do to us. So we had a chance to run away to America, to Israel, right? And that's actually one of the good things that God did during exile, that you're scattered. So all the Jews are not in danger at the same time. But at that time in Iran, all Persia, they were all under Achashverosh's control. Even when we lived in Egypt, we were all in the same country, but Pharaoh only wanted to kill the boys, not the girls. So the Jews did something wrong, that this bad decree happened. The Gemara gives the weirdest reason, because they actually went and they enjoyed the party that Achashverosh made. So it says they enjoyed it, so because of that, they deserved annihilation. Let me ask you a question. What's the worst thing that they did that they enjoyed the party? What did they do? You tell me. What's the worst wrong thing they can do in that party? Not killing. What did they, the one they enjoyed. What enjoyment they ate. So what's the worst thing they did? What did they eat?
No.
Not kosher food, not kosher wine. Is there a death penalty for eating non-kosher food? You guys are scholars. I know there's death penalty for adultery, for killing. If somebody eats non-kosher food, you don't kill him. So why would, because they enjoyed it, so they deserve to die? It doesn't make sense. So, a lot of commentators struggle with it. The Gemara says that was only the people of Shushan. They went to the party. That was the capital. But the annihilation was for all the Jews all over. So it says they did idol worship. Okay, that makes sense. But the Gemara says people of Shushan, they enjoyed the party. You don't deserve to die because you enjoyed the party. So they say people of Shushan also had the idol worship. That's one of the answers they give. We're going to go through a different answer, a revolutionary one. Some other people said it wasn't that they ate non-kosher food. In that party, actually, Achashverosh brought the vessels of the holy temple. The Babylonians destroyed the temple. They took all the golden vessels. So then when Cyrus, Kurosh, king of Iran, destroyed Babylonia, he took all those vessels from Babylonia, brought it to Old Persia, and they were actually serving wine and food in those vessels. So when the Jews enjoyed it, they showed we don't care about God's temple destruction. We don't care about it. So maybe that's why they deserve to die. That's what other Mefarshim say. We're going to say something else. There's actually a Medrash. The Medrash says that there are times in the world that the Jews actually are like one sheep amongst 70 wolves. What they mean is Noach had 71 grandchildren that came. So the 71 nations in the world, at least that's the original. Now we have like over 100 something, 190 countries all over the world. But again, there was only 71 nations. Jews are one. So the other nations are the 70. There are times in the history that other nations are like wolves. They want to destroy the Jews. And the Jews are like a sheep. One of the examples that we got was during World War II. No country cared to help the Jews. Even the United States didn't get involved until Pearl Harbor happened. I don't know if you know about this, but you could Google it. There were 2 huge ships that came from Europe to the shores of the United States, and the people in politics sent them back to Europe. Every single one of them got murdered. Nobody helped. The only country that actually protected the Jews as a country was only Morocco. The king was a Muslim, and he said, you know what, these Jews are my Jews. He told Hitler, you have no permission to come. So basically, World War II was the situation that really was like one sheep, the Jewish people, and the whole world, either they attacked or they didn't care. So the Medrash says, if that's a situation of the Jews in certain generations, how do they exist? We spoke about it, I think, last week. So the Medrash says the way we exist is because the shepherd of the Jewish people, which is God, is so great, Shemeshamran umatzilan. He actually protects them and he saves them. I think we spoke about it last week about Mark Twain. And it says, what makes a nation, same country, same language, they have the same culture. In his time, the Jews had none. We didn't have the same country. We didn't have land of Israel yet. Right? We didn't recapture it. Number 2, we don't speak the same language. We don't have the same culture. Right? Cultures are different. And then it says, besides that, Jews were tortured for over 1,800 years since the destruction of the Second Temple. How did they exist? And it says the Romans came, they ruled over the world for 300 years. They're gone. They assimilated. The Greeks came, they assimilated. Old Persia, for 200-300 years they ruled, and they were assimilated. So how did the Jews? He says, I don't know, it's a mystery. But actually the Medrash answers it. Because God protects them. Just like if there's a shepherd, the wolves cannot attack the sheep. That's exactly what God does. But when does that happen? As long as the Jews want to rely, this is very important, on the protection of God. If Jews decide we don't need to rely on God, we don't need God. Thank God we got America, right? Obama will take it, not Obama. Biden is going to take care of us. Like, what happened in Germany? They said we don't need Jerusalem anymore. Berlin is the Jerusalem of Germany. See, there were some Jews that we don't need Israel anymore. In this country, before Hitler came, that's it. That's what we need. So as long as Jews actually depend on the protection of God, they really rely on it, so then God is going to take care of them. What happens if the sheep runs away from the shepherd? And he says, I don't need the protection of the shepherd. So if there are 70 wolves surrounding him, then naturally it's impossible for him to exist. So at that time, the Jews didn't even eat non-kosher food. According to some opinions, Mordechai made sure there was kosher food. The Gemara says that. But Mordechai told them, don't go to the party. They went to the party, they actually enjoyed it. If they would have gone and not enjoyed because they have to go, you got to be a good citizen, So you got to go to the party. If they would have gone by force, there would be no problem. When they went there and they enjoyed it, that means they actually felt important. Wow, look, what a great king. Under his rulership, he's so nice. We're going to be okay. So they actually removed the protection of God because they didn't rely on God. So they were not punished, you see, because they ate non-kosher, because they relied too much on the empire at that time. It was an honor for them that we're going to such a party. They enjoyed it. And they said, under him, nothing is going to happen. So they took their trust from God. So God led them to go not as a punishment for eating non-kosher, because of their attitude. The Gemara doesn't say they ate non-kosher. They enjoyed the meal. They were like good citizens, Persian citizens, Under his rulership, nothing is going to happen to us. So when God removed his protection, because at that time Haman came, and he hated the Jews, and they ruled over the 127 countries. So naturally we couldn't live. So that's one thing that we learn, people. Whenever we go through our life, the first thing is we have to know everything that we need is the shepherd, is God. Usually we do everything that we can. And then when everything else is unsuccessful, let's turn to God. That's a wrong attitude. First thing you got to do, you got to pray to God. Everything else that happens is because God sends them. And I'm sure we have experienced that. If not you, your guys might be too young. You ask your parents, your grandparents. There were days that, we think there's no more hope. And then suddenly, because of the intensive prayers from nowhere, from somewhere that you never expected, the salvation comes. So again, if we rely on the protection of God, so the shepherd will take care of us. Sorry guys, it's right now 8:44.